First, I would like to start, though, with referring to what Dr. Jaishankar said earlier on buying oil from Russia. Let us remind ourselves that Europe in itself, or when we introduced as the West the oil price cap, the idea was not to prohibit the world from buying Russian oil, right? So in India's defense, and I do understand that India is buying Russian oil, at least mostly within the oil price cap, that's basically the intention of the entire system, because when that was introduced, the entire idea was not to disrupt the entire oil market, but essentially to make sure that, yes, oil is supplied also from Russia, but Russia is not just making a massive margin out of it. Mm-hmm. So in that in that sense, it is and has been working, even though the Iran war now, of course, has a little bit disrupted the entire idea to the extent that, for instance, the US has put some of the sanctions out of place, at least for the time being. But that about that. But of course, Russia's war against Ukraine is an existential question to Europe. And I would say more to the world as well than perhaps countries tend to think. And I do also subscribe to the idea what also Lena said earlier, that we can't afford the thinking that this is not our war. I think it's fair to say in the context that, yes, it is not NATO's war, because NATO did not attack Iran, right? But to the extent that nobody wants to see a nuclear Iran, and nobody wants to see, for instance, the Iranian authorities killing their own citizens on the streets, then definitely it's a global issue and something we need to take care of, like is the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, Finland is committed or has committed itself to the French and UK initiative to essentially making sure that traffic happens once the hostilities are over, and now we're just waiting for the deal.
Well, mostly countries are committed to wars they fight and are equivocal about ones which they observe, as a general proposition.
Yeah.
So I can think of a lot of wars close to us where the rest of the world is quite equivocal. In this particular case, here's the challenge. You have, for the sake of simplicity, 4 parties, which is US, Israel, Iran. I'm using the Gulf as a part, though I accept they have a very differentiated position. And we have extremely good, extremely strong relations with all of them. So when you have then that situation, clearly your response...
So to clarify, that includes Iran. You regard yourself as having good, strong relations with Iran?
No, yes, we have good relations, very substantial relations with Iran.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying the same. I'm not saying the 4 relationships are of the same quality. I mean, for example, clearly where the Gulf is concerned, we have 10 million Indians living in the Gulf. The largest number of Indian nationals who live outside India are actually in the UAE.
Right.
The Gulf countries are our primary energy suppliers. Many of them would be among our top 10 trading partners. I mean, if I use UAE as an example, you have a big community, huge trade, significant energy relationship, and in fact, much more than that, close defense and security relationship as well. So the challenge is in a quadrilateral situation where you have equities, arguably of a different order in each account. How do you manage them while addressing this conflict?
Yeah.
And
are you feeling the domestic consequences of the war already? Because I think India's been unusually vocal in saying, look, the rising energy prices are driving people into poverty.
Yes, because, when you are a low income or a low middle income country, then as indeed happened after the Ukraine war as well. An increase in energy prices hits a low-income country much more than it does a middle-income or a high-income country.
And are you just stuck in the role of kind of frustrated observer, or is there much you can do to try to help?
Well, I think at this time, much of the world is stuck in the position of a frustrated observer. But a lot of countries are trying to do what they can in this situation. Yeah. So it's not for want of trying. I mean, I'm talking about us alone, but I think, certainly there are not that many countries who would have relations, decent relations with all the parties involved. So clearly, we've sort of reasoned with the countries. We've been in touch with them. We hope very much that the U.S.-Iran negotiation leads to an early outcome. Yeah. And the continuation of the fighting is creating problems.
Yeah, and we're in Finland, so I have to obviously ask you about the Russia-Ukraine war. I think in Europe there was a feeling that India adopted what we would regard as a kind of moral equivalence between the two sides, that you were saying, well, it's a big shame, but maybe they should stop, but you were too sympathetic towards Russia, too willing to buy oil from Russia. So how would you explain that position to the people here?
Well, I'd make two observations. I buy oil. I buy oil based on cost and availability. So at that point of time, much of the oil available on the market was Russian, because Europeans were essentially buying up the Middle East oil, which was our traditional supply. So circumstances pushed us in a certain direction. But since you spoke about moral ambiguity, I would say this, no European country has been attacked with Indian weapons. I wish I could say that for European weapons vis-a-vis India. So keep that in mind.
Be more explicit so that people understand what you're saying.
Europeans sell weapons which are used to attack India. Not now, for many, many years. We Indians have never done anything to endanger Europe. So I think that's a reasonable point.